You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Bizarre moment at Trump's state fair baffles Jen Psaki. Don't know what I watched there, based on an article by Matthew Chapman. Trump's fair wasn't a failure of entertainment. It was a failure of rule. A fair built for the camera. The source is simple enough. Trump's Great American State Fair on the National Mall drew sparse crowds, awkward programming, and, by week's end, a stage that started to fall apart and nearly crushed performers. That is the material fact pattern. The political meaning is less decorative. This was not an event that failed to attract attention. It was a spectacle that could not manufacture legitimacy. Power was on the booking sheet. The people with power here were not the handful of spectators or the performers on stage. Trump's team decided the framing, the bookings, and the whole public performance of state power. That matters. When an administration turns the mall into a vanity fair, it is not trying something new. It is testing whether symbolic pageantry can substitute for public consent. It cannot. Empty space is not a media problem. It is a verdict. The weirdness was the point. The source highlights Michael Knowles drifting into a grotesque pseudo-defense of the Salem witch trials, apparently in conversation with a child. That is not a random sideshow. It is a clean example of the right's preferred cultural method: use provocation, confusion, and historical illiteracy as entertainment while laundering cruelty through just asking questions theater. This kind of programming does not broaden a coalition. It advertises a political culture that treats ignorance as wit and authoritarian nostalgia as a joke. The bizarre booking choices were not a bug in the event. They were the brand. Misdirection as routine. There is a familiar trick in stories like this. Focus on the oddity, the cringe, the spectacle of failure, and leave the power structure intact. But the relevant question is not whether the fair was embarrassing. It is who believed the public would accept this as government's adjacent ceremony in the first place. The answer is Trump's political machine, which keeps trying to convert state space into loyalty content. When the crowd is tiny and the stage nearly collapses, that is not merely humiliation. It exposes a movement that confuses command with legitimacy and publicity with authority. Cruelty masquerading as heritage. The Salem witch trials bit should not be treated as harmless absurdity. When a commentator toys with formalizing witch hunts as if the only problem was insufficient organization, the joke is the point of contact with real politics. That is how authoritarian language works. It rehearses dehumanization in a register soft enough for media digestion. The broader pattern is obvious. Trump world does not just tolerate cruelty, it packages it as folklore, as edgy thought, as cultural grievance. Then it asks the public to applaud the staging instead of noticing the intent. What this reveals: this story is not about a bad fair. It is about a political project that keeps reaching for spectacle because it has so little to offer an actual democratic legitimacy. The crowds were thin. The programming was deranged. The infrastructure was unstable. That combination is not accidental. It is what happens when a movement built on domination tries to cosplay as public life and finds, again, that applause cannot be commanded. The lesson is structural. Authoritarian politics depends on presentation because it cannot survive honest measurement. When the set starts to wobble, the whole performance shows its seams. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Raw Story for today's article, with the automated voice of Amy. Thanks for listening.